Hey everybody, Nick here, and today we're going to do a little bit of disassembly on this little guy right here. This is the Red Horse Knife Works Hellraiser. So, let's go on ahead. Whoa there, it's already a little on the quick side. Let's go on ahead and take this little guy apart and see what we can do with the action here. Although, actually, in practice, the action's pretty damn good already. It's a relatively thick and big blade, so it falls shut pretty readily. Centering is... yeah, right about on, right? And no real complaints, but we'll go ahead and take it apart just to see what the inside of this thing looks like. Okay, looking like I can go at this from the back side here, and, okay. It looks like T8. Are you T8? Are you maybe T10? Nope, T8. All right. Go ahead. Pop that loose. Little bit of thread lock there, nothing too bad. All right, come on, come out of there. There we go. Beautiful, number one, and pop screw. Number two loose, again, a little bit of thread lock in there. And I bet the pivot's going to have some thread lock as well, but it looks like it is not a free spinning pivot, which is beautiful. And actually a little less thread locker than the prior chunks, and we can go on ahead and take this apart. One thing I did notice, though, is that believe it or not, I've not been in here yet. There is a bunch of oil up on this guy. The factory has, even by my standards, over-oiled this knife, which is not a terrible thing, I suppose, but, you know, it is something to keep in mind. I'm going to probably do the same thing to it soon, but nonetheless. This knife, in many ways, is sort of an example of, many of you may be looking at this knife, and by the way, if you're curious about these or any of the tools I'm using for today's disassembly, go to nickshabazz.com/tools. You'll see a link to all of them. But anyways, this knife, in a lot of ways, is sort of an example of one of my strategies for the channel, so to speak, which is to try a bunch of things, right? And to try some stuff that isn't historically what I would be super interested in. This particular design, I can't say is, you know, particularly resonant for me. You know, it's interesting. I'm going to be curious how it performs in a daily life, but there's not a whole lot of risk of this guy becoming, you know, a forever, oh my God, part of my... But at the same time, I think it is important that I still check it out and that I still, you know, learn what I can from it and try and get a sense of what's going on here. Maybe I'll like it more, maybe I'll like it less after I actually carry it. But anyways, you know, there are going to be people, oh, Nick only reviews the stuff he likes. Well, I mean, no, I would say this is pretty good evidence that, you know, it's not my style, but I'm still very happy to give a look and to give it a fair shake. Or at least I'm going to do my best to give it a fair shake. Fair is, well, it's tricky for a human to promise, but all I can tell him is I'm going to try, right? But anyways, what we see here is actually pretty straightforward construction, right? We've got some liners on this guy. Those steel. That's steel. He says testing with a magnet. Yeah, steel liners on this guy, nested into some carbon fiber. Well nested. We've got some bearings here, some variety or another, ceramic bearings. No argument there. Wash them off a little bit, and then wash the other one off. May have already gotten this one. It's all good. And clean that off. And then the blade itself is, again, reasonably well done. S35VN. You know what? No strong objections here. We got ourselves a straightforward build. So let's go ahead and put it back together. I'm going to go ahead and put the show side in place here. And we see, by the way, a D shape to the pivot here. So there is a D-shaped cutout and a D-shaped hole. And we just put that... those are the same thing, and a D-shaped pivot is the other word I was looking for here. Okay, this should allow me to put everything back together. Nope, I'm doing it backwards. 100% doing it backwards. Show side gets the pivot. The downside to this approach is that I need to make sure it's clocked properly. That is, I need to make sure the D shape is facing backwards. But that's the way the knife shipped, and I figure, okay, well, I could probably know something about that being a good idea, so I'll go ahead and do it. I'm going to use a little bit of 10-weight nano oil here. Just drip some into the bearing races here. And that'll let me get this guy all lubricated. I'm also going to put a little bit of nano oil inside the pivot here. And then I'm going to put a little bit, and I'm going to try not to do too much, but I'm going to put a little bit of oil onto the detent ball path here, such that should be able to pop in there reasonably. And I'll spread out what's already here onto the bearings on this side. Beautiful. All right, so there's that. Now I can drop on the other bearing. And beautiful. Should have some bearing on the situation. Next up, I need to put in the stop pin, which is right here. And then I'll need to just drop the scale on. I'll go ahead and I'll lubricate the tent ball. There we go. Okay, let's go on ahead and check to see that the D shape of the pivot is lined up properly, and it is, it looks like. And worst case, I can always use the handle of the knife itself to kind of clock it a little bit more effectively, but okay. So immediately, you might not have seen that, but in order to put this guy back together, in order to push it together, what I actually had to do is reach down with my finger and then pull upwards over here to get that lock bar up. That allowed everything to seat into place. So now I've got everything kind of in place, but I'm having to apply downward pressure because, well, the lock bar is pressing up. So I'm going to go ahead and keeping my hand right here awkwardly, I'm going to hold this and put a little bit of blue thread locker. Again, nickshabazz.com/tools if you're curious. And I'm going to go ahead and insert this first with fingers, then keep and pressing down. Tighten this up a little bit. My goal here is not to put it on full tightness, but just to get it to a point where I can not worry about that anymore, and I have a little bit more freedom. It's the end of the day. More freedom's a beautiful thing. All right, let's go on ahead and pop this out. I mean coat this with Loctite. I have no idea why my brain went to pop this out. I suppose I am popping a small portion of a vaguely paste-like liquid. That's weird. 50 motorcycles or something must have just gone by. And that screw yeets itself across the room. Wow, it's all coming apart for me here today. And again, that would make sense during a disassembly. Okay, I'm about to be an idiot here. I'm going to go ahead and close the knife, just so that way I don't have a struggle. Don't want to cut myself as I am inserting this screw. All right, so at the moment, this guy is, the centering is way off, and the pivot is too loose. Actually, those two things are related. One of the things that I've pointed out many times before, but I'll do it again here. Note that the centering is off right now. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to turn the pivot. And as I turn the pivot, right now, because the pivot is too loose, the lock bar, which is bending this way, is pressing the whole blade off on this angle. But I bet you're going to see that as I tighten this screw here, it just centered itself. And I'm hoping that when I go to flick this out, there is zero blade play. Oh, that's smooth. It's borderline frighteningly smooth. When you have a big old heavy blade here, yeah, that'll work. That will work. Okay. I'll admit, I'm impressed. It's nicely constructed there. They've got it's a very nice action when cleaned up. Oof. That's a borderline frightening action when cleaned up, because there's not a whole lot there to catch it aside from your thumb. So this is one that I'm going to probably be unlocking in a downward position, then rotating up. Anyways, hey, look, that's a thing. We're going to go on ahead and give this guy a little bit of pocket time, see how I feel about it in the grand scheme of things. But as far as disassemblies go, that actually went pretty well. All right, I hope this has been interesting to you and that you have yourself an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.